including children's sizes. Emergency exits are clearly marked with international symbols. Please take a moment to locate your nearest exit. In the unlikely event that we need to evacuate the vessel, remain calm and follow the instructions given by the crew. Thank you for your attention. As we leave Greenwich, look along the tree line at the top of the hill behind the town. Can you spot a T-shaped pole with a red ball on it? It sits on top of the Royal Observatory, a building designed by Robert Hooke and Sir Christopher Wren. That ball rises every day and drops at precisely 1300 hours. Around 1 p.m., ship's captains used to watch for the ball to drop so they could set their nautical instruments at the correct time. That's where we get the expression, keep your eye on the ball. The tradition continues today, even though most modern ships use computerized time settings. The Royal Observatory is the home of Greenwich Mean Time, the baseline for time zones around the world. It's also the location of zero longitude. So every measurement of time and place worldwide refers back here to Greenwich.
I need you thinking. Surely still cells is the center of the world. Don't blame us. Blame the astronomer Boyle. Greenwich today was like an old English village in the middle of a city, with quaint shops lining the winding streets. Of course, many of those shops now sell gourmet food and contemporary art. We're setting our course up the river, winding
instantaneously driven to retreat, each man with a handkerchief to his nose.
London installed a sewer system and brought the Great Stink to an end. But the bombing of London in World War II damaged London's sewage system, which began flowing to the Thames again. By the 1950s, the river was biologically dead. Once more, the country was forced into action. The sewers were repaired, industry stopped dumping waste into the Thames, reed beds were encouraged to grow along the banks, creating new ecosystems. Today, the Thames is one of the cleanest rivers in the world. More than 100 species of fish live in its waters. Herons, cormorants and other waterfowl have returned. Dolphins and porpoises have been spotted at Tower Bridge, and seals visit Canary Wharf. The modern world poses new challenges every day, including climate change. We can never again take the health of this river for granted. For the sake of England and the world, may the liquid history of the Thames be a story for future generations to tell with pride. Take to the river in style, city cruises, river days, excursions. Savor the majestic sights of the Thames while indulging in fine cuisine and delightful boating. The lunch cruise includes an exquisite two-course luncheon. Or take a civilized tea cruise, complete with finger sandwiches, cakes, scones, jam, and a generous dollop of cream. Not to mention plenty of good British tea. Spend an evening on the Sundowner cruise, relaxing on the river while live music plays in the background and the stunning sights of London pass by. The London Showboat Dinner Cruise features a sumptuous four-course feast with wine. Then dance the night away to live music with professional singers. For more information, ask any crew member.
Most rivers flow in only one direction, but the River Thames changes direction twice a day. The pull of the ocean tide reaches from the mouth of the river past London. So when the tide is low, the river flows downstream, but it flows upstream when the tide is high. In London, the Thames rises between 5 and 7 meters, or up to 23 feet, with each change of the tide. This tidal flow is one reason the Romans settled London, which they named London. The incoming tide carried their ships upriver to the spot, but navigating the river's changing currents is a challenge, and sailing the Thames takes skill and training.
The tidal flow also increases the risk of flooding in London, especially during storm surges. After several disastrous floods, the government constructed the Thames Barrier. A few kilometres to our east stands a row of elegantly designed hydraulic steel gates, each weighing over 3,000 tons. When storms blow in from the North Sea, the gates close to protect the city from floods. After the danger passes, the Thames Barrier opens and the river resumes its normal tidal flow.
If you'd like to see the Thames Barrier, the most exhilarating way to do it is in a jet boat. The Thames Jet Tour takes you from Westminster Pier to the Thames Barrier and back in a high-speed military-grade jet boat. It's a speed demon's dream come true. Ask any crew member for more information about this tour and other Thames Jet excursions. Every morning, the skyscrapers at Canary Wharf are made of office blocks, rise and windows, and luxuries, mobile phones glued to their ears. You might think Canary Wharf is all business all the time, but you'd be wrong. Come the weekend, the executive who spends Monday to Friday buried in Stockbridge is with her kids getting sheep at Munchausen City Farm, over a morning talk in the middle of the Isle of Dogs. The loan officer sheds his suit of cycling gear or hikes to the Tower of London on the Thames Park National Trail.
You can see the same phenomenon all over London. Look past the palaces, monuments and souvenir stands, and you'll glimpse the real London lifestyle. A jogger dodging tourists at Trafalgar Square, a kayaker riding the tide under Westminster Bridge, or a monk on the tube carrying fresh fruit home from the farmer's market.
Early risers get up at 4 a.m. find the public at New Tower Pier. After sketching architecture of the National Water, intellectuals go to talks of Royal Institute of Philosophy. Swing dancers work on the sweat at Saturday night's swing.
And fun lovers flock to any number of parades and public events. My favourite is the Parliamentary Pancake Race on Pancake Day, also known as Shrove Tuesday. There's nothing funnier than watching members of Parliament trying to flip pancakes while they stagger towards the finish line.
Londoners go mad for sport. The whole city is fiercely opinionated about football, soccer to the Americans. You should hear the roar at a football match in Wembley Stadium. And practically every village, town and county has a club that most English games. Cricket.
Culture vultures flock to the Tate Museums. Parents take their children to see the robotic dinosaurs in the Natural History Museum, and lovers go on dates in nightclubs, restaurants, and theatres all over town. As Samuel Johnson and many others have said, when you're tired of London, you're tired of life. Centrepiece of a new riverfront development called Canary Wharf. Londoners call it Manhattan on Thames, and Canary Wharf does look like a miniature New York City.
Canary Wharf was built on the Isle of Dogs, which supposedly got its name because King Henry VIII kept his royal kennels here. The Isle of Dogs is really less an island than a peninsula formed by a long, bowing curve of the Thames.
Canary Wharf used to be a cargo warehouse at the heart of Docklands. It was part of the West India Docks, originally built to provide safer wharf space back when thieves preyed on ships nearer the city. The Port of London reached its peak in the 1960s when Docklands employed more than 100,000 men. All of that changed in the 70s. The shipping industry began using giant container ships which were too big to navigate up the Thames. Shipping moved to other ports and Docklands was abandoned.
The old walls rotted away while the city wondered what to do with all of this valuable property. Then London emerged as a command centre in the new global economy. The financial service industry demanded less expensive office space in the city. At last, the government saw an opportunity. It founded the London Docklands Development Corporation, an organisation that offered tax incentives to anyone willing to build a Canary Wharf. It was a hard sell at first. Londoners thought Canary Wharf was in the middle of nowhere. Who would want to leave the city of London to come and work here?
But the government clung to its vision. It expanded London's transportation system to make Canary Wharf easily accessible to office workers. Gradually, the idea caught on with businesses and their employees. And today, Manhattan-on-Thames rivals the City of London as a centre of financial activity. Canary Wharf succeeded when everyone expected failure. It has become the focal point of a long-term effort to redevelop Docklands. The London 2012 Summer Olympics was another key event that helped bring this historic area back to life.
London's oldest riverside pub, the Prospect of Whitby, is a white three-storey building beside a weeping willow on the north bank. Pub is short for public house. In England, the local pub has always been a home away from home. When you want to socialise with your mates, you meet at a pub for a pint and a game of darts. The Prospect of Whitby has pillars made of ship's masts and an old-fashioned pewter-top bar set on barrels. Besides beer, ale and liquor, it serves food, including English classics like steak and ale pie.
If pub fare doesn't whet your appetite, London has an international reputation as a gastronomy's paradise. Celebrity chefs have set up shop all over town. You've seen Jamie Oliver and that grouchy Gordon Ramsay on television. Why not sample their haute cuisine yourself? My favourites are women chefs like Angela Hartman, who puts a little taste of Italy in everything she cooks, and Thomasina Mears, who brought the flavours of Mexican street food to London. In fact, some of the best food in London today is served right on the street. Farmers' markets bring the freshest, most delectable vegetables straight from the vine into the city. Food stalls at street markets serve home-cooked delicacies from around the world. And for real value, look for a good food truck. I'm not kidding. London food trucks serve a lot more than hot dogs these days. Instead, you can tear into scrumptious specialities made with fresh local ingredients and sold at prices no restaurant can match, like Jamaican jerk chicken, Japanese-style macaroons, and American Southern-style barbecue.
Don't let all this multi-culti talk scare you away from traditional English food. For my money, there's absolutely nothing better than good fish and chips, a slab of moist, flaky white fish, and crisp fried potatoes so hot they burn your fingers. Douse them in vinegar and you've got a feast. Don't forget two more English favourites, pie and mash and jellied eels. London is also a great place to eat a gourmet hamburger.
How about something a bit more genteel, like afternoon tea? Picture yourself floating down the Thames drinking good British tea and eating finger sandwiches, cakes and scones with jam and a generous dollop of cream. That's just one of City Cruise's exciting excursions that include delightful food and drink. Besides the tea cruise, we feature a lunch cruise, and there's live entertainment on the London Showboat Dinner Cruise and the Sundowner Cruise. For more information, ask any crew member.
Getting back to drinking,
I suspected you might.
you can sample the best of food and drink at an incredible array of London gastropubs. And we have tip-top microbreweries serving artisan handmade beers in varieties you won't find anywhere else, like mango-flavoured wheat beer.
That sounds less like a beer than a pudding. In other words, dessert.
In the early days of the Port of London, ships often anchored in midstream. Lighter men or freight carriers unloaded the ship's cargo onto barges. Between ship and shore, pirates and smugglers sometimes rob the lightermen's barges. Many of these criminals hatch their schemes at the prospect of Whitby, London's oldest riverside pub. Located on the North Bank, it remains a London landmark. Look for a small three-story white building with a terrace facing the river beside a weeping willow tree. A hangman's noose dangles over the terrace, a reminder of the prospect of Whitby's criminal past, when it was known as the Devil's Tavern. You'll meet a much nicer crowd there today.
In a few minutes, we'll see an example of how completely Docklands has changed since the glory days of the Port of London.
How much excitement can you take? Find out aboard ThamesJet. Our military-grade jet boats fly along the river at maximum legal speed. The Thames Rush experience takes you past incredible views of London to Canary Wharf, or blast all the way to the Thames Barrier on the Thames Max experience. ThamesJet is perfect for stag and hen parties, and we're licensed to thrill for corporate A-teams on our unforgettable river raids. We provide experienced skippers and waterproof clothing. Ask any crew member about ThamesJet, the acrobatic ride of your life.
Butler's Wharf, a cluster of yellow brick buildings on the south bank, used to be called London's larder. Most of the city's food was unloaded there from ships that sailed from every corner of the globe to the Port of London. Just past Butler's Wharf was the district known as Jacob's Island. In the 1800s, this was London's worst slum. Charles Dickens described Jacob's Island in his novel Oliver Twist.
Where the buildings on the banks are dirtiest, and the vessels on the river blackest, with the dust of colliers, and the smoke of close-built, low-roofed houses, there exists the filthiest, the strangest, the most extraordinary of the many localities that are hidden in London. Most extraordinary of known as the Square Mile. The City of London on the North Bank is a city within a city. It's the oldest part of London, where the Romans built Londinium in the 1st century. They surrounded it with a wall that remained there until the 1700s. Later, William the Conqueror built a fortification at the eastern end of the wall. This became the Tower of London, the ancient stone fortress with 4 dome turrets.
The main span of Tower Bridge opens in the centre to let tall ships sail through. The bridge also has an overhead walkway added, so pedestrians could cross when the bridge was up. Today, that walkway houses part of the Tower Bridge exhibition, where you can learn more about this world-famous bridge and enjoy incredible views of London from 42 metres or 138 feet above the River Thames.
The HMS Belfast is permanently moored along the south bank. This gigantic grey and blue British warship is now a floating museum with interactive exhibits that help you imagine what life was like for her crew during the Second World War and the Korean War. The Belfast looks huge, but her crew slept in hammocks just 52 centimetres or 20 inches apart. We're approaching our next stop at Tower Pier. Please remain seated until the boat stops moving. If Tower Pier is your destination, be sure to take all your belongings with you and return your audio guide to a member of the crew. Thank you for choosing City Cruises.
Gents, we're about to go alongside Tower Pier here. Once we leave here, next stop Westminster, okay? So this stop, Tower Pier, we are leaving the large gate on the back deck. Anyone for Tower Pier? So once again, anyone for Westminster or the London Eye, just remain seated.
Life rafts and life jackets on board for every passenger, including children's sizes. Emergency exits are clearly marked with international symbols. Please take a moment to locate your nearest exit. In the unlikely event that we need to evacuate the vessel, remain calm and follow the instructions given by the crew. Thank you for your attention.
From the River Thames, you have a stunning view of Tower Bridge, a world-famous symbol of London, so famous that it's often mistaken for the London Bridge. Tower Bridge is just over 100 metres
No accident. Tower Bridge was designed to harmonise with the older landmark on the north bank. The rectangular stone fortress with a domed turret at each corner. This is the legendary Tower of London, now almost 1,000 years old.
A huge grey and blue British warship named the HMS Belfast is permanently moored along the south bank. During World War II, the Belfast fired its guns to protect the troops landing on D-Day. Today, it's a floating museum with 9 decks open to the public. Does London Bridge look especially historic? Maybe not at first. After all, this particular bridge is only a few decades old. But it's at least the fifth bridge that stood here. The Romans built the first London Bridge almost 2,000 years ago.
The wooden bridge that stood here in the year 1014 was pulled down by Viking warriors. That's probably where the nursery rhyme, "London Bridge is falling down," got started. Parts of London Bridge fell down many times over the centuries, but it was always rebuilt.
Queen Elizabeth II opened the latest London Bridge in 1973. If you travel to the USA, you can see the previous bridge. An American bought it, shipped it across the Atlantic, and rebuilt it stone by stone in Lake Havasu City, Arizona.
Nestled amongst the modern buildings on the south bank floats a Tudor galleon painted black with red and gold trim, and two crow's nests on its mast. It's an exact replica of the Golden Hind, the flagship commanded by Sir Francis Drake on his historic voyage around the world. Why did Drake set off this daring quest? For the glory of England, of course.
Unofficially, it's also more than likely that Queen Elizabeth I encouraged him to loot any Spanish treasure ships he encountered on the way. Drake returned laden with riches, and the Queen's share of that stupendous wealth amounted to an estimated £600,000 in 1580, the equivalent of many million today, more than enough to pay off the country's national debt. Today, we'll sail under a series of bridges over the Thames, carrying cars, trains and pedestrians. Londoners love a good walk. Blackfriars Railway Bridge has a roof topped with slanted solar panels. The train station on that bridge gets 50% of its energy from the sun.
That's amazing when you consider how rare sunshine is in London. Shakespeare's company of players performed Romeo and Juliet and his other plays in a theatre named the Globe. A replica of Shakespeare's Globe now stands on the south bank, near the site of the original. It's a round building with white plaster walls, exposed oak beams, a thatched roof, and an open yard in the centre. On a stage in that yard, actors perform plays exactly as they were done in Shakespeare's time.
Well, not exactly. Did you know Juliet was originally played by a boy? Acting was considered an indecent profession for women, so young men played all the female characters. Wealthy playgoers could afford to sit in covered galleries around the sides of the theatre. Common folk stood in the yard. People didn't bathe often back then, and they had a habit of chewing garlic, which they thought protected them from the plague. Imagine trying to play Hamlet or Lady Macbeth to an audience that, quite frankly, stank.
Today, some playgoers still stand in the yard at Shakespeare's Globe. But modern hygiene makes attending plays more pleasant than it was in Shakespeare's day. The great grey dome of St. Paul's Cathedral rises dramatically from the highest point in London. A cathedral dedicated to St. Paul has stood there for over 1,000 years. St. Paul's is an active place of worship in the Church of England, the national church of Great Britain. It's also a popular tourist attraction.
From the cathedral floor, you'll have a breathtaking view of the painted inner dome. If you have strong legs, you can climb the stairs leading to the top. Partway up is a circular balcony known as the Whispering Gallery. Ask a friend to stand on the opposite side, then turn to the wall and speak in a whisper. The gallery's acoustics are so perfect that you can hear each other easily. 528 steps up from the cathedral floor, you'll reach the Golden Gallery. It has a glorious 360-degree view of London and the Thames. Your legs may feel like jelly, but trust me, it's worth the climb.
In the cathedral's underground crypt, you'll find tombs and monuments commemorating British national heroes like Lord Nelson and the Duke of Burgundy. You'll also find the tomb of St. Christopher Wren, dedicated 39 years on his life to designing St. Paul's and supervising its construction. His moving epitaph in Latin translates as, "Reader, if you seek his monument, look around you." On June 3rd, 2012, 1 million spectators lined the banks and bridges of the Thames.
Here they come!
Everyone in London seemed to be there, waving the British flag as more than 600 boats every day floated past, from giant battleships to tiny stars, including the entire City Cruises fleet. Queen Elizabeth II rode in a royal red barge with other members of the royal family. This was the Thames Diamond Jubilee pageant, marking the 60th anniversary of the Queen's coronation.
It was an especially proud moment for London's watermen. Licensed watermen operate many of the boats that carry passengers on the River Thames. Throughout London's history, the city has relied on boats for transportation, food and commerce. Back when there was only one bridge across the Thames, London Bridge, watermen were the equivalent of taxi drivers today, constantly ferrying passengers up and down the river. The competition for fares sometimes turned cutthroat.
Boat, sir. Boat, sir. Boat, sir. Only a penny. A halfpenny. Boat, sir. Boat, sir.
But sailing the Thames could be a risky business. The river has swift currents that switch direction with each change of the tide. Sailing under the old medieval London Bridge was especially treacherous because of the narrow archways underneath. Water built up on one side of the bridge and streamed through like a waterfall. Some passengers got out of the boat on one side of the bridge and reboarded on the other, leaving the waterman to sail through on his own. Accidents happened with alarming regularity.
Today's watermen serve a 5-year apprenticeship, a process comparable to obtaining a university degree. Many of City Cruises' captains are licensed watermen, continuing a long and proud heritage. There's no better or more historic view of London than the one you have now, from the deck of a passenger boat on the Thames. row of green sculpted metal lions' heads along Victoria Embankment on the North Shore. These lions hold rings in their mouths for mooring boats, but there are also an early warning system for flooding. If the water rises to the level of their mouths, the river may overflow its banks. In the words of an old rhyme, when the lions drink, London will sink. When it's up to their mains, we'll go down the drain.
Between two Ghanaian sphinxes that face the obelisk.
If they're guarding it, shouldn't they face outward, watching for danger?
Yes, but Queen Victoria supposedly liked them facing in. One sphinx was damaged during World War I, the second disaster to strike this monument in modern times. Some believe it's haunted by an ancient Egyptian curse. They say that at night, you can hear mocking laughter coming from Cleopatra's Needle.
The gigantic observation wheel on the south bank is called the London Eye. Each of the glass capsules around the wheel holds about 25 passengers, and the view from them is simply spectacular. In clear weather, you can see up to 40 kilometers or 25 miles in every direction. The wheel takes about half an hour to complete one turn. It moves so slowly that you can climb aboard while it's in motion.
The London Eye has 32 capsules, one for each borough in London. You'll see one of the most historic boroughs now on the North Bank. the City of Westminster, headquarters of Great Britain's government. Westminster's most famous landmark is the clock tower of the Houses of Parliament. You probably call it Big Ben, but technically you can't see Big Ben. That's actually the name of the largest bell inside the clock tower.
A light shines above the 4 clock faces on the tower to signal that Parliament is in session. Another sign that Parliament is hard at work is a Union Jack flying from the Houses of Parliament just beyond the clock tower. This splendid neo-Gothic building is officially known as the Palace of Westminster. To give you an idea just how massive that palace is, the flag on top is the size of a tennis court. We're approaching our next stop at Westminster Pier. Please remain seated until the boat stops moving. If Westminster is your destination, be sure to take all your belongings with you and return your audio guide to a member of the crew. Thank you for choosing City Cruises.
Hier raus.